I used to believe my life was ordinary. A quiet town, a quiet house, a quiet girl who knew how to stay out of the way. That was me. I worked at the small library tucked between the church and the diner. I lived in the house my grandmother left me. And I thought routine was safety. But safety has a strange way of vanishing when fate decides you've had enough of it. The night it all changed began like any other, with the wind howling through the trees and me sitting at my window watching the woods at the edge of town. Those woods always called to me, though I never admitted it out loud. They seemed alive, full of whispers only my heart could hear. My grandmother used to tell me not to wander near them after dark. The forest remembers, she'd say, her wrinkled hand tightening on mine, and it does not forgive. I never understood what she meant. Until that night, the storm rolled in just after sunset. The sky cracked open with thunder, and the rain came hard, hammering against the glass. I wrapped myself in a blanket, trying to read, but I couldn't focus. Something restless stirred in me, like a drumbeat that didn't belong to my own body. My chest tightened, and suddenly, I felt not alone. I got up and lit a candle when the power flickered, the shadows dancing across the walls. That was when I heard Itha howl. Not the distant kind you hear from coyotes or stray dogs, but a deep, mournful cry that cut through the storm and sank into my bones. It wasn't just a sound. It was a call. My heart raced. Against every sensible thought, I grabbed my coat and stepped onto the porch. The rain chilled me instantly, but I didn't care. I listened, holding my breath. The howl came again, closer this time, echoing from the trees. That was when I saw him. At first, he looked like a shadow stumbling through the storm. Then the lightning flashed, and I caught a glimpse of a man, tall and strong, but broken. His clothes were torn, his skin streaked with blood and mud. He collapsed just beyond my gate. I ran to him before I could think. His eyes flickered open, and I swear the world stopped moving. They were gold. Not the soft gold of sunlight, but molten, burning, alive. Eyes that didn't belong to any ordinary man. Don't. He tried to speak, but his voice was rough, strangled with pain. They'll find me. Run. But I didn't run. I couldn't. Something stronger than fear held me in place. I touched his shoulder, and the moment I did, a current of heat surged through me, like a thread tying me to him. My breath caught. It felt impossible. Terrifying, yet it also felt like recognition. I pulled him inside. The storm slammed the door behind us, as if the world outside wanted to swallow him whole. I dragged him to the couch, my hands shaking as I tried to steady him. His wounds were deep. Claw marks slashed across his chest. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to act. I fetched water, towels, anything I could find. When I pressed the cloth to his skin, Kay flinched but didn't push me away. "You shouldn't have helped me," he whispered, his voice low, rough as gravel. "Why?" I asked, my heart hammering. His gaze locked on mine. For a moment, the storm seemed to fade. His eyes, those impossible golden eyes, burned with something. I couldn't name fear, hunger, a kind of sorrow so heavy it felt like my own. "Because now you're part of it," he said. Lightning cracked. And in its flash, I saw something shift in him, something not entirely human. His hand trembled as he tried to rise, but his strength gave out. And he collapsed back against the couch. I stood frozen, torn between terror and a pull I couldn't resist. Every instinct screamed that I should be afraid, but instead, all I felt was the undeniable truth. This stranger wasn't a stranger at all. Somehow, some way, I was meant to find him. But meant for what? The howl returned, closer now. Not one voice this time any. The storm carried their cries to my door, chilling me to the bone. Whoever they were hunting him. And if they found him here, they'd find me too. I pressed my hand against his chest, feeling the faint rhythm of his heart under my palm. He caught my wrist, weak but certain, his golden eyes searching mine. "You should let me go," he whispered. "If they see us together, they'll kill you." But I didn't let go. I couldn't even then. In the chaos of the storm, I knew something had already changed. My life was no longer mine alone. And when the next howl ripped through the night so close it rattled the windows, I realized I had just chosen a side in a war I didn't even understand. The storm raged against the windows, but the sound of it was nothing compared to the echo of the howls outside. They weren't distant anymore. They were circling, weaving through the trees like a noose tightening around my house. I pressed the curtains closed with trembling hands, my heart hammering so hard it hurt. Behind me, the stranger, the alpha, struggled to sit upright, wincing as he clutched his side. His breathing was rough, but his eyes were steady, fixed on me as though I were the only thing keeping him tethered to this world. "You don't understand," he said, his voice low, gravel scraping against silk. "They won't stop until I'm dead. And if you're with me, you'll share my fate." I shook my head, forcing calm into my voice, though my whole body trembled. "Then we'll have to make sure they don't find you." He gave a weak laugh, one that sounded more like sorrow than humor. "You think it's that simple? I'm not just hunted. I'm bound. The moment I crossed your threshold, you felt it, didn't you?" I swallowed hard, unable to deny it. That strange pull, that rush of heat when my hand touched his, it hadn't been my imagination. It was something ancient, primal, something far older than either of us. "What are you?" I whispered. His gaze burned brighter, his jaw tightening as if he hated the answer. "Alpha of the Silverclaw Pack. The one they want destroyed." The words hit like a weight. I had heard stories whispered in town-old legends about werewolves, about bloodlines cursed and blessed by the moon. Children laughed about them around campfires, but adults lowered their voices when the subject came up. My grandmother had always said the forest was dangerous, but she never told me why. Now I knew. I took a step back, my breath catching in my throat. The storm cracked above us, thunder rattling the walls. He watched me carefully, pain flickering across his features, not from his wounds, but from my silence. "You're afraid?" he said softly. "Shouldn't I be?" I whispered back. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The storm filled the space between us, but so did something else, a tension that wasn't just fear. It was connection. Recognition, that same invisible thread that tied us together, pulled tighter. And I hated myself for not breaking it. Finally, I found my voice. "If they're hunting you, then why here? Why me?" He lowered his gaze, his hand tightening against the wound on his chest. When he looked back at me, the truth in his eyes was sharper than any blade. "Because you're not just a girl who stumbled into danger. You're mine. My mate." The word hung in the air like lightning. My stomach dropped, my skin prickling with cold and heat at once. I wanted to deny it, to call it madness. But the moment he said it, something deep in me answered. Before I could respond, the sound outside shifted. No longer just Howell's footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, circling closer. He pushed himself up, teeth gritted, every movement strained. "They're here." I rushed to him, placing a hand on his shoulder to steady him. "You can't fight like this." His golden eyes flashed fierce, even in weakness. "An Alpha Docent Tebow." "Not to them." "Then don't bow," I said, surprising even myself with the steel in my voice. "But you're not alone now. You don't have to fight alone." He looked at me as though I had spoken words he'd never heard before. For a heartbeat, the danger outside didn't matter. It was just him and me, bound by something neither of us chose but both of us felt. A crash shattered the moment. The porch groaned under the weight of claws scraping wood. A growl rolled through the walls, deep and guttural, rattling the air in my lungs. My blood ran cold. They weren't just at the edge of the forest anymore, they were at my door. I grabbed the fire poker from the hearth, holding it with both hands, though it shook in my grip. He rose to his feet with a pained grunt, his form trembling as though something inside him strained to break free. The golden fire in his eyes blazed brighter. And I realized I wasn't just standing beside a man. I was standing beside the wolf dot, and when the first claw tore against the door, splitting the wood with a deafening crack, he turned to me with a voice that was both command and promise. "Stay behind me. Whatever happens, you don't run." The door shuddered again, splinters flying. My heart raced, my throat tight with terror. But beneath the fear was something else, an unshakable certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be. The bond had chosen, and nothing in the storm outside could unmake it. The door shuddered under the weight of claws, splintering wood falling onto the floorboards. Every crash felt like a countdown, each second shrinking the fragile space between safety and ruin. My grip tightened on the fire poker, though I knew it was useless against what waited outside. My alpha stood in front of me, his shoulders squared, despite the blood seeping through his torn shirt. His golden eyes blazed brighter with every strike against the door, as if the wolf inside him welcomed the fight. "They won't stop," he said, voice low but steady. "They came for me, but they'll take you now too, because you chose to help me." I wanted to tell him I hadn't chosen anything, that I was dragged into this storm without warning. But that would have been a lie. Somewhere deep down, when I pulled him out of the rain, when I defied his plea to let him go I had chosen, the door cracked. A clawed hand forcing through, snarling voices spilling into the room. The sound made my blood freeze. He turned to me then, his face fierce but not unkind. "There's still a way. If you open the door, if you let them take me, they might spare you." "No," I whispered before he could say more. He frowned, confusion flashing in his eyes. "I don't care what they want," I said, my voice trembling but true. "I won't give you up." For a moment, he simply stared at me, as though the weight of my words pressed against something he had buried long ago. His jaw tightened, but his hand brushed mine swift, fleeting, yet enough to send that same unbearable heat surging through me. Then the door gave. It exploded inward with a crack of splintering wood, and 3 figures poured through wolves in human form, their eyes glowing red, their snarls cutting through the thunder. Silverclaw, one spat, his gaze fixed on the alpha. "You should have stayed down when we left you bleeding." The alpha stepped forward, though his body shook with pain. "You'll have to finish the job here," he growled. The rival wolf's eyes flicked to me then, narrowing. "And you brought a human into this?" One sneered. "Does she even know what you are?" The alpha's body tensed. His silence was answer enough. I looked at him, at the raw truth written in every line of his face. He hadn't told me everything. The pull between us, the word mate, the bond I thought it was chance, fate, something natural. But the way they looked at me, the way they laughed, told me there was more. "What aren't you telling me?" I demanded, my voice rising despite the danger. He flinched just slightly. His golden eyes met mine, full of regret. "That bond, you feel it's not chance. It's not just fate." His voice cracked under the weight of it. "It was chosen. The moon chose you for me, and once chosen. There's no going back." My heart twisted. No going back. My ordinary life, my quiet house, my safe little world, it had already shattered the moment he collapsed at my gate. But now I knew it wasn't just accident. It was destiny. A destiny I hadn't asked for, but couldn't deny. The rival wolves lunged. The alpha shoved me aside, shifting mid-motion, bones cracking, his body twisting into a massive wolf. His fur gleamed silver even in the storm-darkened room, his growls shaking the walls. He clashed with them in a blur of teeth and claws, fury and blood. I scrambled to my feet, clutching the fire poker, though I knew it was useless against creatures like them. The fight was brutal, every strike shaking the floor beneath me. He fought like the alpha he was, but he was wounded, weaker than he should have been. And then I saw it. One of the rival wolves breaking past him, eyes locked on me. I raised the poker. But before I could swing, he snarled, "She's his mate. Take her heel break." In that instant, I understood. This wasn't just about killing him. They wanted to destroy him, and I was the weapon. No. The word ripped from me, louder than thunder. Something surged inside me then, something I couldn't explain. The air around me shivered, and the wolf froze mid-step, his eyes widening as though some invisible wall had slammed against him. The alpha turned, golden eyes wide, shock flashing across his face even in the middle of the fight. "You?" he breathed, his wolf voice a growl and whisper all at once. But I didn't have time to ask what he meant. The rival wolves regrouped, snarling, circling us both. The alpha stood between me and them, his silver fur streaked with blood, his breath ragged. Yet his eyes were steady, fixed on me. Not on the enemy. On me? You don't know who you are, do you? One of the rival wolves hissed. She's not just human Silverclaw. That bond didn't happen by accident. My blood ran cold. My whole body shook. And though I wanted to scream for answers, the truth pressed down on me with suffocating weight. I wasn't just caught in their war. I was part of it. The storm roared louder outside, rattling the broken door. The rival wolves lowered into crouches, ready to strike again. The alpha stood tall, unyielding despite his wounds. And I, caught in the middle, realized I had a choice to make. Not tomorrow. Not later. Now Renan, save myself. Or stand and save him. And when the next thunderclap shook the sky, I knew there was no turning back. The rival wolves circled us like shadows given form, their snarls rising above the thunder outside. My grip on the fire poker trembled, but the alpha stood unyielding in front of me, silver fur gleaming in the candlelight, golden eyes burning with both fury and fear. He was fighting for me, bleeding, staggering, but still standing. And I knew with crushing certainty that I couldn't let him fall. One of the rivals sneered, his voice twisted with malice. Don't you see, human? You were never meant for this world. He's bound to you, but you'll be the chain that drags him down. His words sliced through me, cruel and deliberate. Yet instead of doubt, something fierce rose in my chest. A voice not my own, steady and unbreakable, whispering, "You are not the chain. You are the key." The rival lunged. I barely remember raising my hand, only the sudden rush of heat that exploded from my skin. The air itself seemed to ignite with silver light, flaring outward like a shield. The wolf slammed into it mid-lep, his body thrown back across the room with a snarl of shock. Silence fell. Even the storm outside seemed to pause. I stared at my hands, trembling, glowing faintly with a shimmer that faded as quickly as it came. My breath caught. I didn't understand. I had never felt anything like it before. The alpha turned, his wolf form lowering slightly, eyes wide in disbelief. "You." His voice was rough, almost reverent. "You've awakened." "What did I just do?" I whispered, my pulse hammering. But before he could answer, the rival wolves regrouped, their snarls sharper, their fear masked by rage. "She's not just human." One spat, blood dripping from his mouth. "The bond wasn't an accident. She's of the old line, old line." The words chilled me, though I had no idea what they meant. The alpha stepped closer to me, his silver fur brushing against my arm as if he could shield me with his very body. "You're not just my mate," he said, golden eyes locked on mine. "You're something far more dangerous than they ever expected." Dangerous. The word should have terrified me, but in his voice it sounded like power. The rivals didn't hesitate again. They charged as one, claws flashing, eyes blazing red. The alpha met them head-on, a blur of silver fury. The room became chaos, snarls, crashes, the shattering of furniture. But amid the chaos, felt it again, that strange pulse inside me, like the rhythm of the earth itself. My chest tightened, and instinct told me if I gave in to it, I could do more than just shield. I could fight. I raised my hand, and the silver light surged again, brighter this time, pouring through me like fire and ice all at once. It flared outward, striking one of the rivals square in the chest, sending him crashing into the wall. The alpha seized the moment, pinning another to the ground with his claws, his jaws at the wolf's throat. The last rival hesitated, eyes darting between us. For the first time, they looked afraid. "This isn't over," the pinned wolf snarled, struggling against the alpha's weight. "The bond is cursed. The council will see her dead before they let her live." The alpha growled low, a sound that rattled through the floorboards. And with one final slash, the rival wolves fled into the storm. Their shadows vanishing into the trees, silence followed. My whole body shook, the fire poker slipping from my grasp and clattering to the floor. My hands still glowed faintly, the silver fading with every heartbeat until only my trembling remained. The alpha shifted back, collapsing to his knees, blood streaking his chest. He looked at Minot with fear, not with anger, but with something deeper. "Ah, you're not just my mate," he whispered. "You're the one the moon promised." His words stole my breath. My grandmother's warnings echoed in my mind. The forest remembers, and it does not forgive. Had she known? Had she kept this from me all along? I sank to the floor beside him, my heart torn between dread and the undeniable pull toward him. "What am I?" I asked, voice breaking. He reached for my hand, his touch weak but steady. "The truth will cost us both," he said, golden eyes burning even as his strength faded. "But if you choose this path, there's no turning back." Before I could answer, the storm outside shifted. The howls returned, not 3 this time, but dozens. A chorus of rage and hunger rolling through the night. I froze, dread crawling up my spine. The alpha's grip on my hand tightened, his voice low and fierce. "They've called the pack." The windows rattled. Shadows moved in the trees. And as the candle guttered in the draft, plunging us into near darkness, I realized this wasn't survival anymore. It was war. The night split open with a roar. One moment, I was clutching Elias's hand, his pulse pounding against my palm. The next, the forest exploded in chaos growls, snapping branches, the stench of rage thick in the air. The blood-fanged wolves had come. They poured into the clearing like shadows come alive. Eyes gleaming red, claws raking the earth. They weren't just beasts, they were vengeance wrapped in fur, driven by the curse that fed on their hatred. And their leader, Cale, towered at the front. His form caught between wolf and man, a nightmare pulled from the depths of fear. "Elias," I whispered, my voice strangled by the sheer force of terror. His hand tightened around mine. His eyes, those silver storm clouds, glowed brighter than the moon. "Stay behind me." But even as he said it, I knew he couldn't hold them all back. He was still weak, his strength only half returned. If he fought them alone, he wouldn't survive. The first lunge came without warning. A wolf the size of a horse leaped for me, jaws wide. I froze, every instinct screaming that this was the end. But Elias moved faster than I could blink, shifting midair. His body stretching and twisting into the magnificent, terrifying wolf I had seen in the cabin. His fur shimmered silver, its growl a rumble that shook the ground. He collided with the attacker in a storm of claws and teeth. And the two tumbled across the clearing. The forest became a battlefield, wolves tearing into wolves, the night alive with snarls and cries. My heart hammered in my chest as I stumbled backward. My human fragility exposed among creatures born for war. And then Cale's gaze found me. He stepped forward slowly, savoring the fear he knew I couldn't hide. "So this is the girl," he said, his voice a gravelly growl. "Half wolf, half man. The fragile little thing he risks everything for." His words sliced through me. I wanted to deny it, to stand tall, to show no fear. But the truth was in my trembling hands. In the way my chest rose and fell too quickly, Elias howled. Tearing free from another bloodfang, his silver coat streaked with blood that was not all theirs. He barreled toward Cale, but the leader only smirked. With a flick of his clawed hand, he sent Elias sprawling back, the earth cracking under the impact. "No," I screamed, my voice shredding in the night air. Cale stalked closer to me, his massive frame blotting out the moonlight. "He is weak," he hissed, "cursed by his love for you. And when I break you, he will finally fall." Something broke inside me then, not in fear, but in fury. I had been running from this world since the night Elias stumbled onto my porch. Running from the truth, from the danger, from the bond I felt but didn't understand. But here, in this moment, staring into Cale's hateful eyes, I realized I wasn't powerless. I had chosen Elias when I pulled him into my home. I had chosen him every time. I defied my fear to stay by his side, and I would choose him again if it cost me everything. I stepped forward, planting myself between Cale and Elias. "If you want him, you'll have to go through me." Cale laughed, a terrible guttural sound. So fragile, so foolish. His hand rose, claws catching the moonlight. Then so be it. The strike came fast, a blur of motion. But before his claws could tear into me, a blinding silver light burst across the clearing. I staggered back, shielding my eyes. The ground trembled as if the very forest had awakened. Elias stood again, but not as before. His form shimmered, caught between wolf and man, glowing with a silver fire that licked at his fur. His wounds had closed, his strength magnified, his power undeniable. Cale froze, his expression faltering for the first time. "Impossible," he snarled. Elias's voice was layered, echoing like thunder, both wolf and man entwined. "You will not touch her." And then he struck. The two clashed with a force that split the night apart. Fang met claw, light battled darkness. I could only watch my heart in my throat as Elias fought not just with strength, but with something deeper, something born of our bond. Every time Cale struck at him, Elias rose stronger, fueled by the fire that had ignited between us. Finally, with a roar that seemed to shake the stars themselves, Elias drove Cale into the ground. The cursed wolf howled once, then dissolved into a shadow that scattered like ash on the wind. Silence fell. The blood-fang wolves, seeing their leader fall, slunk back into the trees, their rage broken, their curse weakened. The battlefield emptied until it was just Elias and me. Standing in the clearing under the broken moonlight, he stumbled, the glow fading from his body, and collapsed to his knees. I ran to him, catching him before he could fall further. His skin was hot, his breath shallow, but he was alive. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice raw. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. "No, Elias. We saved each other." And as I held him there, surrounded by the wreckage of battle and the fading echoes of growls, I knew the world had shifted. Nothing would ever be the same. But one truth had burned itself into my soul. I would risk everything again and again if it meant saving my alpha mate. The forest was still, not the calm kind of stillness, but the aftermath of a storm, the hush that follows when nature itself is holding its breath. Smoke from Cale's vanquished form lingered faintly in the air, curling upward like a dark prayer into the night sky. I held Elias in my arms, his body trembling as the last of the silver fire drained from him. His eyes, once blazing with otherworldly power, softened as they found mine. "You shouldn't have stood in front of him," he rasped, a faint smile breaking through his exhaustion. I brushed damp hair from his forehead, my tears blurring the outline of his face. "And you shouldn't have come into my life. But I'm glad you did." He laughed, low and weak, but it was a sound of life. And that was enough. For a long while we sat in silence, the moon casting broken light over us. My heart was still racing from the battle, but beneath it was something steadier, knowing and acceptance. The bond between us wasn't an accident. It wasn't weakness. It was strength. Ilias's hand tightened around mine. The curse. It was never just Cale's. It's old, deeper than blood. He carried it, but so do others. They will come. The words should have filled me with dread, but instead they settled like truth I had already expected. Danger hadn't ended tonight. It had only shifted. And yet I didn't feel afraid. "Then we'll face them," I said softly. "Together." His gaze lingered on me, heavy with something I couldn't quite name reverence. Maybe, or gratitude, or something even more eternal. "You've changed me," he whispered. I shook my head. "No, Elias. You showed me who I really was. I thought I was just a girl living in a cabin, trying to stay out of the world. But I'm more than that now." My voice caught, but I pushed on. "I'm yours. And you're mine. That's all I know and all I need." He closed his eyes, resting his forehead against mine. "Then no force in this world will ever break us. The dawn crept slowly, painting the forest in pale gold. By the time the first birds stirred, Elias was able to stand again, though his strength came in unsteady waves. I stayed at his side, one arm wrapped firmly around him. We walked back through the trees, the battlefield behind us fading into memory. And yet, every snapped branch, every paw print in the mud, was a reminder of what we had survived. When the cabin came into view, I almost broke down. It looked the same as it always had, small, quiet, unremarkable. But nothing inside me was the same anymore. Crossing the threshold, Elias paused, his silver eyes scanning the walls as though he could see through them. "This place saved me," he said. "No," I corrected, squeezing his hand. "We saved each other here for the first time since I met him." Elias smiled without shadow, without hesitation. It was small, almost fragile. It lit the room brighter than any sunbeam. The days that followed blurred into a rhythm of healing. I tended to Elias's wounds, and he taught me about his world, the Pax. The ancient bonds, the dangers that lingered at the edge of every forest. With each story, I felt the threads of my old life unraveling. I was no longer just a bystander in this tale. I was woven into it, bound by love, by choice, by destiny. Sometimes, in the quiet of evening, doubt would creep in. What if others came stronger than Cale? What if I couldn't protect him again? What if love wasn't enough? But then Elias would reach for my hand, grounding me. "We're stronger together," he would remind me. And somehow those words were enough to silence the fear. One night, as the wind howled outside and the fire burned low, I asked him the question that had been clawing at my chest since the battle. "Elias, what if I had failed? What if Cale had taken me?" His jaw tightened, and for a moment he didn't answer. Then he turned to me, his eyes steady, his voice low. "Then I would have followed you into the dark. Because where you go, I go. Always." The weight of those words settled into me, not as a burden, but as a vow. I leaned into him, resting my head against his shoulder. And for the first time since the night he appeared at my door, I let myself believe in forever, as weeks turned to months. The scars of the battle faded, but the bond between us only grew stronger. The forest remained haunted with shadows, but it no longer frightened me. I had found my place not in solitude, but in the heartbeat of the man who had become my world. And when I looked into Elias's eyes, I no longer saw the Alpha who had come to me wounded and cursed. I saw my Matha soul I was destined to risk everything for. Sometimes I wonder what might have happened if I had turned him away that night. If I had closed my door and let him bleed out beneath the storm. But then I remind myself that fate rarely knocks twice. He was my choice. I risk. My salvation, and if the world came for us again, I knew one truth would never change. I would risk everything, again and again, to save my alpha mate. Because love real love's never safe. It is always worth the danger, always.